G'day and welcome again to another Campfire panel discussion. And today I have with me, first of all, Jacqui Bloom, who is the founder and director of the Helping Hub. How are you, Jacqui?
I'm very well, thanks, Alan.
Welcome to the show today. And John Hope, who is a life and business strategist. How are you, John?
Great, thanks, Alan.
And we have Pauline Crawford-Omps, who is the CEO of Corporate Heart International. How are you, Pauline?
I'm really good. Good to see you all.
Excellent to have everyone here. And today we're in the middle of the COVID virus and the chaos that's going on. And we're knowing now that we're in lockdown, we've got our kids at home and everything else. So thinking about what are the future possibilities for men and women when it comes to co-parenting society and building a better economic relationship with life. So I was wondering if, Pauline, if you'd like to start us off with this one today, please.
Okay. My thoughts on this were because I'm studying and very passionate about understanding how all relationships work, but especially the parenting relationship. So also not just our own children in our family position, but also how as a society and as a world, as different countries, we think about co-parenting business. And I mean that in a sort of countrywide sense, you know, men and women coming together of all different signs, diverse generations and cultures and everything, but just really understanding the masculine, feminine energy that can create a more harmonious world. So we don't separate business and life, given that we're all now staying in and getting to know our own intimate family parenting. And in my experience, there's different styles of parenting. So it'd be interesting to explore how each of us believe we have parented our children or our nephews and nieces if we don't have children. How do we see that role in the world, and can it be different styles? And then how would you see it broadly if you were parenting economy and life, kind of bringing the two together? Because I think that this is the message that this current situation is giving us. It's people over profits, it's family first, it's be compassionate, be loving, understand that people are important now. We understand that more than anything. And just as an example on the business world, is I was watching a top CEO from Hyatt Hotel Group saying that he was really bad to his family of employees, which are vast numbers. He had cut his own salary out. He'd asked his top people to take salary. He wanted to protect everybody in his business so they were okay through this, whatever that meant. Obviously, his end goal is to get his family back to work, but he doesn't actually know yet what that's going to happen. So he, for me, was showing a real amazing parenting style in a business context, as well as his own family, who he's obviously very concerned about as well. So it's that whole range of parenting now that becomes important. So I'd love to hear other people's views, because I think often we're parents without instruction at the beginning of time. I know I was, you know, I have two children who are now grown up, and my example was my parents, who were incredibly good parents and very loving. So I was very lucky. But where do we learn it from?
That was one thing I was always looking for, was the manual that when I had kids to start with, you know. It's the same thing as in work, in business. Quite often we're thrown into a leadership role and there's no training there. We're good at what we do and we're into that position. Jacqui, what effects have you noticed yourself?
So, Alan, firstly, just on your comment, there are manuals out there these days, and to be honest, I don't think any of them actually work either. So at the end of the day, it comes back to the children, the dynamic between the parents and the children, and how the parents actually parent their children. There is that the manuals can do all the things that, you know, you want them to do, but at the end of the day, it's how you interpret that and fulfill that in your parenting style, I suppose. But thanks, Pauline, for opening that up, this conversation, because I as a single parent, you know, co-parenting through as a divorced couple, this COVID has been really interesting. What it's brought up for me personally is the angst of being a mum and wanting to protect my children as much as possible and fretting when they're not with me. So when they've been with their dad, I sit back and go, okay, well, you know, are they okay? Who are they being surrounded by? Who are they being exposed to? And so that is something that one of the first things I've had to learn to self-soothe and self-settle on that, because, you know, I trusted him, you know, 20 years ago to have children together. So I need to continue to trust that process. And it's a natural animal instinct that a mother goes into protection mode straight away and wants to protect her young. So that's been really interesting for me personally. But then the other situation I think is, for me, has been understanding what the children's needs are, because I've got 2 teenage boys, 13 and 15. And for us, I'm really grateful that my children are that age right now, rather than being toddlers or really, you know, much younger, because I think that would be, I see some of my friends who have children that age, and my goodness, I really take my hat off to them, because I would be pulling my hair out right now, I think, if my kids were that age. Trying to explain to your kids that they can't go out, they can't see their friends, they can't do the things that they want to normally do, that's challenging in itself. So to have someone to back you up. So our co-parenting style has always been, we actually co-parent exceptionally well. And what I'd like to get out there is that has been a choice, and it hasn't been easy, right?
Yeah.
If I had chosen to be a vindictive ex-wife, or if he had chosen to never want to talk to me again, it would be very, very different for both me and him, and also our children. But what we've done is we've chosen to rise above whatever differences we've had to put our kids first. And I think that is, in any co-parenting situation, regardless of what is happening around in the environment, I think that is absolutely key to your children coming out of a divorce situation and a parenting situation in the best possible way that they can. And so we've both really stuck to that. And so now, during this time, it's been great, because what we've done is we've managed really quickly to pivot what we think is best for the kids. And sometimes what we think is best for the kids isn't necessarily what is best for the kids. So we've always encouraged the conversation with the boys as well, to say, are you seeing your dad enough? Would you like to see him more? Or are you spending enough time, you know, with each other? So we established that very early on. Now it's homeschooling. So what does homeschooling look like? Well, they've got their computers, they've got their books at home, they've got all sorts of stuff here. And so what we then need to do is lessen the disruption for them. So we've changed our situation around to say, okay, well, how about we do week on, week off now, so that the kids aren't going back and forth between houses every 2 or 3 days, having to carry books and laptops and reset themselves up every couple of days. So that is how, in a nutshell, that's how we are managing the situation. We've, discussed with the boys and worked out, well, what do we think is best for them in this time? And as I said, it's all about choice, and you've got the choice to co-parent.
That's, if you care about your kids, and that's the thing, is what's the most important thing to you? Is it hating your ex-partner, or is it loving your kids and putting them first?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my first wife left, and I had 3 boys to raise on my own. It was important, as they were growing up, for them to respect their mother, because if they didn't, they wouldn't respect the other women that they would find in their lives. They repeat my history. So I built a relationship with her so that they had that connection with her, and that was necessary. How about yourself, John?
Yeah, I like Pauline's, how she's saying parenting is it's the same in business as it is with kids. You know, like it's still a family if you value your workers, and especially in small to medium businesses. And the most important part there is something, edification. And we've gone away from that as a society. You can't, like, as a mother and a father, you can't if you want to sap their power, then de-edify them. You know, if you want to put them down to the kids, then why is the kid going to listen to them when you put them down? So, and that's something that no one teaches. You know, no one brings up anymore, and it's such a valuable asset to any parenting relationship. Like, that's leadership too. Like, if you're going to be a leader, like Alan said, parenting is leadership. Being in business is leadership. How can you be a leader of someone if the people below you are listening to others or themselves de-edifying you? So you got to learn not to put the other person down. Like Jacqui, I've got two boys. I've got two separate people, so I've had to deal with that, go through court. They were septic with as far as me. I had to spend lots of money to get access, and ended up being the case law for 50% dads, which they got rid of because they found most dads don't want to do it. And I was travelling, I think it was 800 kilometres a week for access, because I was in Nambucca Heads, and they were in, like, my first son was in Newcastle. So, like Jacqui said, it can be tricky. At the time, I was in the police, and you know, you get a lot of allegations made against you in the police. So what I did religiously was I recorded every single conversation and every single contact I had. And then everyone's saying it's illegal. Well, you know, I was lucky I had access to police prosecutors. It's not illegal. It's inadmissible. But the problem with inadmissible evidence, you can't use it in court, but police have to listen to it and act on it. So if you want to keep yourself in line, record yourself. How do you reckon I sounded on the tape when I knew I was recording myself? And I've got the other parties kicking in doors, dragging me behind a car when I'm trying to put my son in, verbal abuse all the time, you know, and it's absolutely disgusting. But even while all that was happening, I never went away from the education thing. Like, I never put them down. I would say to the kids, even at a young age, look, you know, because it was brought up from the other side, I couldn't do this because of this behaviour. You know, it'd say, you didn't ring me, Dad. Yeah, I did. Have a look on my phone. I rang every day, but I didn't ring 50 times a day. You know, you expect to get rung back. So I think that in itself is very important as edification, both in business and in parenting. But we are Australians too, and we do all have a little bit more of a sarcastic wit than other people around the world. And some people don't understand it. You know, like my father always said, don't laugh at them, laugh with them. Sometimes you can laugh at them and with them, but if you're laughing at them and they're not thinking it's funny, then you're just having a shot at them. You know, you're putting them down. So you got to be wary. Like, I'm a cheeky bugger, as Alan knows. I love to muck around, but I don't try and hurt people with it. You know,
we get along well, John.
Pardon?
We would get along well.
But yeah, I think edification. Once we get through this, you know, like, we're in it is scary for people. You know, like, we've had change and people resist change. So I think we just got to respect the boundaries that are out there. Like, I had one of my staff members, one of my ex-staff members, just walk into my house yesterday and put a bottle of wine on my table and go, "Well, dude, we allowed to do this? You can't do this." And he goes, "Don't worry, stay 1.5 metres away." I went, "Oh, okay." And then he goes, "I got to go to work. See you later." Okay, thanks. Great gesture. You know, he's come and done that. But I literally went, "Shit, what do I do now?" You know, like, are we allowed to do this? But
don't touch the bottle. It could be still live on it.
Yeah, I know. I think they said 4 hours, so I left it 4 hours. But you know, but it was still a great gesture to have. So I don't know. It's like anything. We've got these boundaries. We've just got to learn to operate within them until that time when we come out, and then I think we'll have a new appreciation on you know, socialising and spending time with people we like. So I'm about to sneeze, and I'm looking for a tissue. Sorry, excuse me for a second.
Yeah. One of the things that I've looked at, I know that everybody at the moment is talking about social distancing, and I cringe every time I hear the term, because we're physically distanced, but we are not socially distanced, because every time they use the word socially distanced, we're social beings. So when we hear that, this is one of the reasons why so many people were ignoring the law and getting outside and getting together, because there was a necessity to be together. So we are physically distanced. Well, look at the other day, my birthday party. You know, you guys there in America, England, Australia, all getting online together. Yeah, I sort of had a go at Scott later on. You know, you guys had a party and I wasn't invited.
It did feel a bit funny, but thought it'd be a good gesture for you. Like you would have got a kick out.
Actually, I'm upset I didn't get invited. So, you know, you could open up a whole can of worms here.
I reckon. Because they planned it all. It took them about a week to plan the whole thing. And while they were doing that, and they were online together, they just decided to have the parties. So it was Alan's birthday party without Alan. But John they had a what was it now, Dad's joke session here. And John threw a few jokes in. So I got mentioned in there a few times. Thanks very much, John.
Well, that's right. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think what this whole situation is teaching us is different ways to get together. My son's a DJ, and he did a party last night in England, but he had about 50 people online. He was live streaming. He set up all his computers. He was on screen doing his, you know, whatever, and everybody was on the screen. And some people were singing, they were doing karaoke. You know, he was drinking, they were drinking, and it was absolutely brilliant. I want to say that even when we get back to being in, that we don't still keep those scenarios. And I think what I was picking up from you, especially Jacqui, and all of you said, Jacqui, about respecting differences. It's a big theme for me, is respecting the differences and respecting individuals, and then open parenting, really sharing, not being vitriolic. That's what I would love to see in society across and in business as well, that we're learning to be community, we're learning to be family, even if we're not blood families, that there is an idea of connectivity, that we have to make that extra effort when we're on screen, and making sure that Zoom doesn't go crashing because there's so many people on streaming. Sometimes I worry more about that at the moment, that if I woke up and suddenly Zoom wasn't working or the internet wasn't working, I'd be, you know, I'd go stir crazy.
That's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm exhausted by all the socializing at the moment. I actually welcome a night off or a morning off where I'm not talking to people, because all of a sudden people just think, oh, we're not touching or seeing each other, so we have to be online. And the number of meetings and Zoom calls that have opened up, I can't fit them all in.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
right.
I'm actually learning to cut back and say, hold on a sec. And I think a really big lesson here for everyone should be, don't forget to practice self-love and self-care as well in this time, because all these Zooms and conversations, that's a lot of energy that we're expending in these conversations. And it's not always positive energy. You know, some people are really struggling and really taking it down. Take the time for yourself and just relax through it and breathe through it, I think, is really important message as well.
And I said the other day about the mobile phones, like you put yourself in a depressive posture on your mobile phone. So if you're looking at negative stuff, you're already putting all that stuff through your body. So, you know, remember to stand up with your chest out, keep your head up. You know, don't let your physiology, you know, artificially create negativity in your body.
Well, that's interesting. What comes up for me is the idea of self-discipline. In your parenting model, how do we you know, encourage our kids and our employees or whoever it is to have the self-discipline enough, but also come together and collaborate? Because not everybody likes to collaborate in the same way. You know, some people like lots of energy altogether, and others just, you know, I know my son said to me, even though he's a DJ, he said, oh, if I come on the family Zoom, I think I can only do 5 minutes because I can't cope with all the family together. So that's a choice. And you mentioned that, Jacqui. I like that, is that being okay with people's different choices.
Yeah, because one of the things we're noticing is that with the internet, we've got the slowing down because we've got technology issues happening at the moment, because you know, Pauline's coming across where her pitch is freezing a little bit, and sometimes the voice drops. There's a big load on the internet at the moment. And I'm just
Yes.
thinking, well, yes, a lot of people are getting in and having meetings. I know last week I had, 25 actual meetings on Zoom. I've got 18 booked this week, both with clients and with Campfire Projects and other things. So there's a lot of stuff happening, but how many people are, because they're locked in, have this need to be active and socialise and everything else, and they're just making noise on the internet, just being busy, and therefore not really connecting, because we've got our kids at home and everything else. Well, what about spending some time there? What about getting that quality? So it's not just being online all the time. It's spending time with the family in that, offline, and making sure that we're really connecting with it. It's a great opportunity here now for parents with their children to really build a strong bond with them.
Yeah,
Find
I
out
did that
how
last.
they learn.
I did that last night with my boys. We had it was my birthday, as you know, and we played. I got a pool table, and I got a little one of them bars that you'd flip it over. It's a poker table, pool, like roulette thing. So we had 3 rounds of poker, and then we had a couple of goes of pool, and ate some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and my son brought a bottle of, what was it, Jameson? So we gave that a nudge, and now I've got I don't know if it's I didn't have that much to drink. I think it's a Kentucky Fried Chicken hangover I've got at the moment.
John, I wouldn't say that to too many people. Some people might call DHS on Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, that's,
Yeah. But whilst I was talking to my boys last night, they're keeping in contact. My oldest son, he was telling me they play poker online, and then they have Zoom things, and they're having beers and socialising like they would normally, but doing it online. So I think they've got a better grasp of this sort of stuff than we do.
Yeah.
So I think we need to learn off them a little bit.
Yeah, I think Pauline and Alan, that one of the points before is that you make, Al, is one thing that I learnt being entering into singledom after 20 years of marriage was learning to be by myself.
Yes.
Learning to have that quiet time, learning to actually love me and love the time that I spend with me. And I think a really, really big gap in society that I'm hoping this may partly shift is that ability to spend time with yourself and reconnect with yourself, because once you can reconnect with yourself, then the connections that you make with other people are so much more pertinent and especially with your children. And I was in a park the other day and just looking around, and I know social distancing, I was exercising and looking around the park, and I absolutely loved the energy in the park. It was calm. There were families around, and this is during the day. During the week, during the day, you don't see it. You don't ever see it. And so it was just beautiful because the energy was calm. There were families out together. There were kids playing together, siblings playing together that you wouldn't normally see, making up games and creating different things and it reminded me of my childhood, because back then we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have the technology we had today.
Yes.
We had to make up that play in those games. And I think it's such a key part of parenting now is to teach your children that it's actually okay to be bored. It's okay to spend time on your own, in your room, with Lego or with books or with whatever it is that's not technology, but spend time with yourself. And as a parent, I think that's really important to show as well.
That's it. Well,
I agree.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because I divorced my first husband when my kids were 17, 19. And my husband said, "Oh, you'll never like being on your own." And that was the one thing I absolutely loved. I was on my own, and I could go and cry on my own, and I could go and, kick the wall, or I could dance, or I could do anything on my own. I think, right, Jacqui, it's about knowing it's okay to have time on your own. And that's a pressure that's going to kick in a bit in the next few weeks, I think, when people are say they're in a flat or they don't have an outdoor space to go and spread their family around. That's going to be the big challenge. And that's where they need to start having conversations where they acknowledge if there are any stresses, or they put boundaries in. So whether that's parents to children or siblings to each other, I think the next few weeks we're going to see the pressure mounting, and that's really where I want to pray for everybody who's being sensible and staying in. And it's fantastic we've got this family time, but also understand they need to come out of it understanding unity and separation even within their homes.
Yeah, well, I just had a bit of a realisation, because I was thinking when my boy's mother left and I was raising the boys on my own, it was either I was working, running working within my own business, and I was living on a property. I was back with them. I always had somebody around me. And I thought, right, well, I never had my time, but I did. I was an hour away out in the country to where my office was in town. So I had that hour each way in the car, in my own, listening to music or whatever, but it was alone time. But now the parents and people at home don't have that alone time, because you're not in the car. You can't go anywhere unless you go down to get the food from the shopping, and you're not going to take a long drive. So it's imperative to the people at the moment, to be able to co-parent and do everything else, you need to have that time for yourself. Because if you don't, it's just full on. There's no stop. And that thing is going to cause pressure and stress. And that's when you start to see a rise in, kids being abused, yelled at, etc., but also domestic violence on the rise.
Yeah, and I think it would be challenging for suicide as well, because people will get desperate. But I think we need boundaries. We need to have choices and boundaries and conversations now before the pressure kicks in.
I think if I was sitting listening to this, 10 years ago with two young boys at me all day, I'd be sitting here saying, well, how do I do that? It's easy for you to say because your kids are older or they're not at home or what have you. So some of my suggestions for people listening would be take 20 minutes, and that's all it needs to be. Take 20 minutes to go and sit in your room and actually shut the door. It is okay to shut the door as long as you explain to your children that that's what you're doing. And I know little kids will keep coming in and keep badgering you. So one of the things that actually has worked for me with my teenagers is put headphones on. And when I've got my headphones on, they know that means don't come near me or your life's going to depend on it. It's do something that makes sense to your children as young as they may be, that they will then understand it means, and I know it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but be creative and find that one thing that your kids will understand, that they can relate to. When mummy's got those headphones on, or when mummy's got the door shut, it means do not come in until, and set a timer for them so that they understand.
Have a timeout like in sports.
Have a timeout, set a timer, set an alarm for them so that they understand that when the alarm goes off, that's when mummy will come back out. Or there are ways. So what I'm saying is, if you say, no, I can't do that, that's actually just an excuse. Find a way. There are ways around it. There's lots of opportunity out there to think creatively. Google some options. For me, a big one is exercise. So go, if you can, I know it's not possible for everyone, but if you can, go for a walk for 20 minutes or go and sit in the park for 20 minutes on your own and just breathe.
Not allowed to sit.
No, you are. Oh, really? Not allowed to sit? Yes, social distancing.
No, you're not allowed to sit on the seats at all. They've actually put tape over them.
No, don't sit on the seats. Sit on the grass. Much better.
Oh, I think they're picking people up for that. If you're exercising, you're not allowed to sunbathe. You can go to the beach, you can swim, you can walk. If you lay down and sunbathe, you're in trouble.
Yeah, they move you on. But I never had used earphones when I had the I'd put the music on, I'd sing, and that soon cleared the room. I had space then.
Right. So that's it. You come up. I dance. I start dancing. Sometimes in my underwear, the boys run as fast as they can.
I think the other thing is, and I'm sure you do this, Jacqui Bloom, is to engage your kids in, well, how should we create the rules? Really this pressure cooker situation. What should we do? How will we make it fun? If there's an argument, we have to have a timeout. We have a red card. In British football, you have a yellow card, then you have a red card, and I don't know. You can ask them what kind of, penalties or prizes do they want to manage this, and make it a game, make it part of what will come out the other end as well, because they will come out of this and be parents.
Yeah,
Another example, also, the boys last night asked if they could buy some Lego. Well, do you know what? I welcome that, because they haven't spent time doing Lego for a number of years now, because they're always on their phone and it drives me crazy. But I thought about the expense of it, and I went, you know what? I'm not spending all this money now that they're on school holidays doing things like movies and activities that we would normally do, and going out for dinners and whatever it might be that I would normally spend money on. So I thought, well, I think that's a wonderful opportunity if I put that money into Lego, where they're actually going to self-entertain but use their minds and stimulate. I think as I said, every decision we make is a choice, and we can have it as a positive decision or a negative, and we can be frustrated or we can enjoy the decision that we make. And so I thought, you know what, it's okay to spend that money on Lego, because I would have spent it anyway in school holidays.
Yeah, well, that money's well spent, because it's just the sanity it keeps as well. It keeps the pressure down. It means the relationships are going to be smoother. But you can break it up, instead of, the kids are going to have to be do homework, schoolwork, homeschooling. So don't just sit them down for 6 hours or whatever to do that work. Actually, they'll probably spend a lot less time and get better results, because they're at home and they're not going to have all the other rubbish that's going on around them. But you can break it up and go, rightio, do this and then we'll do this together. Do that and then we'll do this together. And while they're doing their stuff, that's when you can be doing your stuff as well.
Another thing that I also said to the boys last night is each of you tell me one thing that you would like to learn from me that I can teach you that we've never had time to do before. And so
I love that.
So they both came up with ideas. It involved cooking from each of them, and that's fine. Excuse me. So they've both given me recipes that they would like me to teach them how to cook. And I said, okay, we'll do that together. So there are ways around it and to do things, but I often think, my gosh, how am I ever going to have the time to teach them to be self-sufficient as young men? And this is a perfect opportunity to take that time to do it.
But as we said before, there's a lot of people, there's going to be domestic violence, a lot of people that aren't parenting in a positive way. And I know from 20 years in the police, when you did, we're talking about domestics are adults that chuck tantrums. It's all it is. Because they've had something happen to them emotionally, they haven't got over it. So when they get into a pressure situation, they react. At the emotional age where their emotional growth stopped, might be 6, 8, 12. But when I had my boys, and kids throw tantrums. It's part of being a kid, but you learn to grow out of it. And I had a rule with mine. I said, okay, I never got angry. I just said, I rarely said no, but if I did, I said no, and they chucked a tantrum. I'd say, all right, well, it's no next time. And you only got to do it once. It's like Fonzie said on Happy Days. You want to be tough, you only got to hit one bloke. And you do it once. The kids don't ever forget it. One of my youngest son, he was about 6, and he got the Macca's toys that you get with the Macca's meal deals. And he just want the ridiculous little cheap-ass toy, but he wouldn't eat his thing. So I said, oh, mate, if you're not going to eat it, you can't have the toy. Anyway, he got there. He wasn't going to eat it. We were in Macca's. I said, well, it's no worries, mate. I said, go and get your toy and take it over to the girl and say, I can't have this because I didn't eat my meal. And she was only a young 16-year-old kid, but she must have had younger kids, because she goes, yep, that's fair enough. And she took it off him and said, if you're not going to eat your meal, you can't have your toy. I only did that once. He never, ever did it again. No raised voices, no anger, no. So I think, if you take that out of the equation, get rid of that yelling and just set the lines in the sand, and they know. Then you've set your with lines, boundaries, like Pauline was saying. They know that boundary. If they step outside that boundary, then they have a loss. You don't have to yell at them, but they have a loss.
If the child doesn't have boundaries, then the end result is, well, I put that down as, but if you don't put boundaries for your kids, you don't guide them, because you're not then guiding them in the right way. It's really child abuse as far as I'm concerned, because you're not giving the opportunity to grow. Because boundaries are there not as barriers. Their boundaries are a guide to how to grow into adulthood.
Yeah, so my kids did that. They would be watching other kids, and they'd see a kid chucking a tantrum that's, in his early teens, and they'd look at me like, are they crazy? Do they know what that kid's going to miss out on? But they don't, because they're not being brought up the same way. But I used to often laugh on that. But yeah, the boundaries are important. You've just got to.
And I learned
they teach resilience as well.
Yeah, I learned a really good lesson from one of my kids' teachers. He was the last teacher in the sort of lower school, going to a bigger school, and all the kids loved him. But a lot of the parents thought he was very weird and curious, and anyway, I discovered that if the kids came in, they were like 11, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Joe, we haven't done our homework." We turn around and say, "So what do you do about that?" Oh, and he gave it back to them. He didn't let them off it. He said, "Okay, how are you going to deal with that?" So they get into a conversation, and all the kids really responded. And his view to us was, a big fish in a small pool at the moment, and they're going up to a big school where they're going to be a little fish in a big pool. And I'm not teaching them any content. I'm just teaching them how to be adults. And I love that, because it was about giving, at a certain stage, giving the child the responsibility to make a decision within the guidelines of that conversation. So I think we could do more of that. And my mission is to make sure that when we go back into the workplace, or we go forward into new workplaces, we take some of these skills with us, and we don't hear these horror stories about employees who just don't like going to work and they're fearful, and actually breed employees who are parenting, if you like, their employees in this wise way. That's my absolute mission in this world now.
Yeah, because everything comes down to relationships. If you look at employees want to have, it's the same as a love relationship. Somebody knows that they're loved if they feel like they've got a place that they belong, that they're valued, that they can contribute. Well, isn't that what your staff want as well? They want to know that they're valued, that they've got a place there, that they contribute and everything else. And if they feel that, then they're loyal to the organisation, and they work harder, and the organisation makes more money. Yeah. So I look at it from what we do in our personal lives, in the relationships there. We take the same stuff into business. If we take the same stuff into schools, then we've got that connection all the way through. People go, "Oh, I've got to behave differently with my children as to my employees." No, you don't. Yeah. Treat them the same with that level of respect. Help them to find that they have a place that they contribute. Find ways in which they feel that they contribute and everything else. And as you said, Pauline, if you're asking questions, you're coming down then to problem-based learning and experiential learning. And that's where the kids get involved. They're not good with maths. You find a subject, something at home or something that they love doing, and bring the maths into that so they can see how the maths works with it. And this is the opportunity for parents with their kids now to really discover new ways to communicate with their children. And they'll discover that all of a sudden their children are more mature than they thought they were, because they're given the opportunity to be that. And they'll find that they really do like their kids a lot more than what they thought they did.
I think for me, this is, there is some real tragedies going on around the world, obviously, but this is the plus side for me. It's what I call the law of unintended consequences, that as a world, we're learning how to live with ourselves and with each other in these micro units. And when we come out of it the other end, we want to bring that energy about human embracing each other and engaging and understanding natural talents. All that stuff is what is the plus side, that I believe if we get past this critical next few weeks, months, we will co-create a better world, dare I say.
Yeah, I think we will. And so quite a while ago, I visited my two older grandchildren and their parents, and dinner time was quiet at the table. There wasn't much talking, and I asked them, what was the thing they were grateful for that day? Well, my granddaughter doesn't let anybody off anymore. They sit down at the table, and as soon as they start eating, she's asking all of them, including her brother, "What are you grateful for? What was the best part of your day?" And they're on the positive stuff, and the conversation starts. And, she's 11 years old when she started all this, and she'd found this was something that she really loved. It worked. She was very quiet at first when we started it, And after that, you know, if I go in now, she's making sure that I'm answering the question as well. So
That's really good.
it's brilliant. So it's interesting that when you do find that way of talking to your kids and realize that they're not just these little kids, but they have a personality of their own. They've got knowledge and everything else. And as I always tell people, something they say, well, who are your greatest teachers? And I say, well, quite often it's the kids.
Yeah.
So all ages, you know, everyone to me is a teacher, whereas I'm a part-time teacher, but a full-time, you know, a full-time learner. And so having that opportunity for the parents, now here's this real gift they've got in these close quarters with their kids. Instead of thinking, well, oh my God, this is going to be pressure, we're stuck with each other for all this time. There's an opportunity for them to just go looking and finding a little bit more about their kids. And I guarantee their kids are going to amaze them with what they can actually do.
Yeah.
I've got to admit though, Alan, there's some people out there that, you know, they're that negative. If you put them in the dark room, they develop. I'd hate to be locked up in a house like that with someone like that. You know, you'd be sitting, come on, there's a good side to this. So maybe there's an opportunity for some people to learn that. But not everyone, but we all know people like that.
Yeah. I think most people would, you know, would like to have I think everyone would like to have a better relationship, but some people just can't see it. They just think that, well, nothing's ever going to be good and they're going to be hard to convert. But I'm hoping that a lot of people who are listening to this who are going, well, I want to, but I don't really know what to do. And then going, oh, there's a few ideas in here, and then apply some of that. But first of all, you've got to recognise that, yes, other people have been through similar things, but they've had a different result because they've taken a different approach to it. So if what you're doing right now is not working, and was it Henry Ford who said, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I would suggest on that, which I think we're all concurring on, is that if a parent is thinking, oh my God, I've never had to do this, I haven't got a clue how to school my kids, ask the kids what they love doing. Because every child actually knows what their natural talent is. And often it's being doused down in the classroom. But for any parent out there who doesn't have a clue, just sit the child next to you and say, okay, what do we really enjoy doing? And don't necessarily take it, but you know, what do you do? What are you doing when you're most happy? What fulfill you? And your child is actually going to tell you, and it might absolutely surprise you.
My youngest son's doing his year 12, like his final year, and I reckon he's doing more work now than he did when he was at school. He's the teachers. I'm getting 2 or 3 phone calls a day from teachers, just making sure he's okay. He's on computer. He's I think he's getting more self-discipline than he had beforehand. You know, so it's good. He's and he's getting his stuff done. I ask him about it. He's got this, and so I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but I'm pretty impressed by it. And he's just a local public school that he goes to here at Woodelba, and they're doing a great job, I think, and they're all checking in with their kids and making sure they're all right. So yeah, I think it's
the
good.
other thing I think we should suggest to the kids. My grandchildren are 10 and 12, so my daughter said, have a diary and write what's happening for you every day, because in 20 years' time, this is going to be a time capsule. And just let them free write just what they're feeling that day. And that will be such amazing history about what we're going through now from their point of view.
Yeah, so I see the physical distancing that we have at the moment has given us an opportunity for a lot more social closeness.
Yes.
And to, you know, hopefully people are saying, well, what's it going to be like when we come out the other side? I'm hoping that people don't forget the lessons that they've learnt through this period, and they keep a lot of that stuff going, you know, connections. Because
even washing your hands isn't just for coronavirus; it's for, you know, colds, flus, all sorts of things. So maybe we need a good lesson there.
That's
the hygiene of the world will go up in levels.
Yeah,
but there could be ramifications to that as well. So I don't know that I am really big on, not that I'm not big on washing hands, I always have been, but you know, the extra hygiene, I think we're going to create a whole another world of other problems with that. So well, I'm not going into that subject.
There's always extremes. You've got to keep a balance. That's the challenge. And for me, it's about keep on having conversations without judgment, you know, because once you do that, even if you go, oh, I never thought looking at it like that. Even with your kids, you go, okay, so that's the way he sees it, that's the way she sees it. I need to just honour that it's said.
So
you don't
acceptance,
have to.
opposite of judgment's acceptance, isn't it?
Yes, and it's different perspectives are coming out now that we can't ignore. We have to allow that. That's why I think there are a lot of negative people in the world, but they have to make some serious choices. It's just what we've got to do. And I think the more of us who are very positive and give these good ideas out, the more we can pull and attract those people into realizing that this is an astounding good point where they can find out about themselves and their loved ones.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the ones who embrace the situation, the ones who embrace it and want to change through the situation and want to learn through it and really discover themselves and discover their children and discover and find the opportunities. They're the ones, their families are the ones who are going to come through this and be the ones who are then for the future, going to make the changes that need to happen for the world to reunite and embrace. Whereas the ones who don't conform, I think are going to be miserable for a very, very, very long time. And at the end of the day, again, it comes down to choice. And I know I keep saying that, but it's something that I've learnt. So, I can look at the things that I've done previously and go, God, Jack, you know what? That didn't happen to you. That happened, but it was a choice. And
everything's a choice.
And I really encourage people to think about the decisions that they make and really think about, well, am I making it because I had to? Well, even if you had to, that choice to have to was your choice.
It's still your choice, yeah.
You gotta accept it too. Like most people resist. And the first step's to accept it. And the more you resist and fight against it, you're digging your own hole. So
and I think that
this thing's here now. We've got to accept it. We've got to do the boundaries and then look for the positive things we can do, what joy we can have, like Pauline said. Time with family, and value that. It's an opportunity to get a bit fitter. Like you got more time to spend on that, or connect with people, do things like this, just do some positive stuff and get a broader appreciation of what we had before we got put into this situation.
And also, aside from John, I think we're going to be like the fittest nation we've ever been when you take away the beers and the KFC. But the number of online programs there are now for yoga and personal training sessions and group sessions, it absolutely astounds me. I think, gosh, if you put courses into every part of you could fill your day with courses and meditation and yoga and exercise at the moment with everything that's going on online. I really think we are going to be a much fitter nation when we come out of this.
Well, I think that's good because we're going to have a lot of things to deal with as we come back into the economics side of things. And I think the wise companies who will be sustainable, there was a lovely story, and I can't remember what the company was, but the CEO, because of what was happening, was going to lose 20% of whatever. And he decided rather than get rid of 20% of his staff, he got all together and said, I'm going to cut my salary. Will any of you, we're going to stay in this together. And they all agreed and they all stayed. And they will be the company that, remote work will stick together. And they'll be the sustainable ones that come out because it's about community, which is, for me, is family.
That's it. That loyalty between all of those people, that's if they work together, they're a team. It'll grow from there. I think, we've got the two poles at the moment, those that can see some good in this and those that just see nothing but bad. And I think those poles will actually shift further apart. So there'll be some people that'll get worse with their attitude and just go, no, and you get angry with everybody else who's going, hey, life's good. And so you'll have a big gap between the two. But as you said, Jacqui, it comes down to a personal choice. And we have to decide, do we want to be miserable or do we want to be happy about this? How can we get the best out of this situation? But those that want to be miserable, as we've said on other panel discussions, what's the secondary gain? What gain do you get out of being miserable? What gain do you get out of being a victim? You know, I
They're scared.
realise
What's making them scared and keeping them there?
that's it. So,
So how do
To
we
have a
help
magical conversation.
how do we help the people who might be listening to this, who are in a situation where they're feeling, you know, really cooped up and in a desperate situation where they can't get away from, you know, I would normally say a husband who might be abusive, but it could be the other way around as well. There's you know, always situations where the woman can be the instigator of abuse as well. So, you know, when I think about this conversation, I'm reflecting on my own situation. I am really fortunate that I'm not in that position. So I then would like to consider people who are in that position and how do we help them? What sort of things can we, what sort of options can we give them, or ideas can we give them to help them through that time?
Yeah, well, at the start, the first thing is it's going to come down to them. They've got to make a decision as to whether they want things to change or not. If they can't see a solution, don't believe that anybody has a solution, doesn't matter what we do, they're not going to take it on. So first thing is, it always comes back to the individual, personal responsibility. They have to decide, well, no, I don't want this situation anymore. I want life to be different. And then once they've made that decision, then it's to actually reach out. It is listening to conversations like this. It's finding out, well, one of the reasons we have these conversations, so everybody who listens to these can go, yes, I really have an affinity with Pauline, or Jacqui really gelled with what Jacqui was saying. I understand that her background is similar to mine, so where I'm at the moment. And then, you know, they'll like look at John and go, right, I want that masculine side as well. So the end result is they can then get in touch with through the Campfire Project. And it's not just a Campfire Project. There's so many other groups out there that are trying to do good as well. So in that particular case, reach out to them. But again, it's always going to come back to the individual. But we can't do it to them. They've got to ask for that support so they can move through their situation. We can't do we can't do it for them, but we can guide them. We can
Tony Robbins does a full day on that. I went to Date with Destiny a couple of years ago, and he talks about, he does a full day on relationships, which was pretty interesting. You know, he says, and he gets people up, and you can actually watch it on Netflix. There's a segment on what he does, and it's, but they're 6 17-hour days, like they're massive, and they're awesome. But he says, like, one of the main things that kills a relationship, that fuels most fights, is selfishness. Being selfish. Being in a relationship is the opposite. You know, you're supposed to be a bit more selfish. It's about, you still got to have things for yourself, but it's about doing for the other person. Most people lose track of that. They lose track of why they're with the person. So I'd encourage people to work out if they're being selfish, and fear can bring that out, even if it wasn't there to begin with. So, you know, and so that goes back to, well, what are you being scared of? You know, and just going through it, working through those emotions, and then trying to find out, okay, well, what joy can we get out of it? Like we had spoke about the other day, Alan, you know, what charity do I need? How can I be more giving? What do I need to be grateful for, as we said before? Who do I need to forgive? And usually it's yourself, you know. How do I find more joy? You know, and once you start doing, and feel it, don't just think it, you know, like feel it, go through it all. Because it's a good opportunity to do those sort of soul searching. But mental health is a volunteer army. Unless you're prepared to do it yourself, it's just not going to happen. You can't force it upon anyone, especially someone else. You have to want to do it yourself.
Yeah, we know that everybody feels better about themselves when they're able to help somebody else, and they proved that with all the telethons when they started those, the charity telethons. And they found that the people who were pledging the most money were the ones that were in the worst situations, from the most impoverished areas, because they felt better because they're able to help people. So it's, you know, and that's a good point. If you're able to get out and connect with other people, see how other people are living as well, you start to change your attitude to your own life. You realise that you're not on your own. There is camaraderie with other people in that situation. If you go from that total victim where it's, you know, you can't rely on anybody and everything else, then the end result is that's a lonely place to be. It's hard to trust anybody. But if you can step out and see how others are living and realise that you're not the only person, as I say, you're not Santa Claus, then you've got that opportunity to realise that, hey, these other people are going through similar things, and then there is a connection. And then you've got someone you can start to talk to. So it might be baby steps for those that are really down one end. It will be baby steps. Those that have been through a lot of things and have experienced that they're listening to other people, they might be ready to take faster steps. And that's when, for the rest of us who want to be there to help, that's when we need to make sure that we're doing it for those people, not just for us to feel better as well. And I know,
Alan, can you not use the Santa Claus thing with that beard?
Yeah, I was going to say not while you're sporting the beard, because
that's why he is a secret
birthday cake that after that birthday cake that Kylie dropped here the other day, and that I might have the belly to go with it as well. Oh, it's good, and there was a lot of calories in it.
Well, but my advice for this period of time is when you get tense, start dancing. So I put up an amazing dance video on my Facebook page, and it's full of those, but it's a compilation of all these amazing people, from Fred Astaire to Elvis Presley to Patrick Swayze and beyond, dancing. And it's a real tap footing. Even if you can't dance, it makes you want to dance. So I think that's my advice to people. Don't get tense.
I saw them, and actually maybe if I can find it, I should share it in the Campfire Project, but it's the most beautiful video of an elderly couple in Spain who got dressed up, had date night, and they got dressed up in their full dance gear. You know, he was wearing his tux, she was wearing a ball gown. They moved the furniture around in the lounge room and they just danced, and it was absolutely divine. And I said, you know what? That is exactly what date night should be. Any day of the week, whether we're in isolation or not, just spending that time together, doing something that you both love, that is a date night. You know, it doesn't have to be spending thousands of dollars on each other. And it just warmed my heart to see that. I loved it.
And that's fantastic. And there's a lot of people who have started putting songs together. There was one about the lockdown, and it's a young guy who's singing, but it looks like his parents are there as well, and his parents are dancing around, and his sister. And they've put a lot of work into choreographing this thing. It looks like a major production, and it's so well done. But I was just thinking, it's not just the time it ran for that 3 or 4 minutes. It's the work they put into it and the impact of working together to do that. It goes beyond that again. So when people are looking for things to say, well, how do I fill my time stuck at home? I can't just watch reruns of, the shows that they're putting on over and over again. These sort of things. Have some activities, have some fun, have some laughter, because I reckon they probably filmed sections of it several times to get the movements right and everything else. But the connections that are made in that, they could be brilliant. And then to be able to watch other people and realise that then you've got an older couple watching them dance and just seeing the rekindling the love from when they were kids and everything else, and realise it gives you another, what do we call it, an admiration for the older generation. I know some of the people, one of the things I was going to put out to all the panelists on the campfire, especially if you've got older friends or older parents, for instance, having an interview with them, do an interview of your own, talk to them about their life. Because when Kylie came over and dropped the cake off on Saturday for my birthday party, she was then telling me about her grandmother and the conversations that she's having with her and her grandmother, things that she went through. Absolutely brilliant history. To have that as something that they can talk about, but then also have that put into the campfire as well, would be fantastic for more people to see it, for everyone then to get a value for, yes, the kids have got so much to teach us, but also the older people have got so much more to teach us as well. And we can take from all those experiences. There's a wealth of things that we can do in this lockdown that don't just get things done, but get us connected again in a way that will go into the future.
We're writing history.
That's it. So it's, again, it depends on what we learn from this. People said, oh, we get back to normal. I go, I hope not. I hope we don't go back to the old normal. I hope we create a new normal.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because for so long, if we look at industry, as I say, 87% of people were disengaged in their work before the coronavirus.
Yes.
So with that, all these people who didn't want to be at work, if they didn't want to be at work, they're miserable at home. And this is why domestic violence was up, why bullying was up, child abuse and all these things. So in this isolation, we've got an opportunity to learn from that and turn the whole thing around. So at the end of this, if we do it right, that could be a massive reduction in suicides, in child abuse, in domestic violence.
Yes.
And a lot more understanding and appreciation for each other, because, well, as you said, Jacqui, both men and women get abused. I think it's 1 out of every 3 victims are male.
Mm.
And we don't know, the number's probably even higher again, because most males won't say they've been pushed around by their wife or a partner or anything like that. So we've got that opportunity to step beyond that stuff to something better for the future. So again, as you said, it's down to making a decision.
Yeah.
So if we were finishing off with just one tip that you might have for the people who are listening today as something that they can do, what would you guys suggest? Who'd like to go first?
I think the main thing is to see this as a time to make things different and better, respect yourself, respect differences. That would be my takeaway.
Okay. Will I go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think appreciate the things that you don't have at the moment, that you took for granted before, and appreciate the things like your family that you probably took for granted before. So I think it's, appreciation of, and that looks to the future, a bit of hope, and like have some joy and stuff while you can, and hopefully in the future you'll appreciate what you weren't appreciating before.
Excellent.
And I think my sentiments are the same. Take this time to actually enjoy your life and sit with it, because we are most likely never going to get this time back again, or have a situation like this again for years and years and years down into the future. So I just really think take the time to invest in yourself and invest in your family, and the rest will come, the rest will follow.
As you said, it's a chance for us to be able to invest, and it's a time that, if we've got an opportunity, if we don't handle it right, it's going to be a lost opportunity. So when I worked with terminally ill patients, I used to ask them, they'd say, I don't like the way I'm thinking. And I go, well, how would you like to think? And they go, well, I don't know. And they can't, because you're asking them a question. You're asking them about, if you don't like the way you're thinking, how do you get out of that? Well, they're thinking. So I said, okay, well, how does that make you feel? Oh, it makes me feel this way. Well, what would be the alternative? How do you like to feel? And they would say, I like to feel this one. I go, okay, start using all your senses. Tell me who you're with, what you're talking about, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, and describe all the things you'll be doing. I like walking along the beach. Tell me about that. Where in the sand? Are you in the water? What are you smelling? What are you hearing? Who are you with? And all of a sudden their thoughts would change. So just on that feeling side, this is where we're more than 80% emotional and only 18% or so logic. So all the things we did make a decision on are based on the emotion. So if you don't like the way you're feeling, sit down and think about the things that how you would like to feel, especially in the house, with your partner, with your children. How would you like to feel? What sort of feelings would you like to have? And then start thinking about what things you could be doing to actually feel that way. So straight away, you're now going into the feelings, and the thoughts will line up with that. And that's how you change the thoughts, by not thinking about the old thoughts. When you create new ones through the feelings. And that's something that people can do. And then to do that, as you said, Jacqui, they need to find that little bit of time on their own to separate, to do that. And it's always a case of just saying, hey, family, this is when I need a little bit of downtime. I need to just go and I want to think about things so I can make things better here. So let the family know you're doing it not just for you, but for them as well. Because if you feel better, they're going to feel better, because we're all connected energetically. Okay, guys. Well, thanks very much for coming along today. As we've seen, on all of these calls, we're having problems with the internet. And I think there's a lot more activity on it. So one thing I do that hope it comes out of this, that our technology worldwide is taken up a grade. But we'll see what happens on that one. But again, guys, Pauline, Jacqui and John, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks,
Thanks for having me.
And for everybody who's been listening in, thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the next Campfire Project. Bye for now.